Poor student tutors, rich classmate for free. The words had seemed so straightforward when Maya Chen had scribbled them onto her flyer and posted it across campus. Nothing but a simple act of kindness from someone who understood what it meant to struggle. She never imagined those 7 words would alter the entire trajectory of her life. The university library hummed with the quiet urgency of finals week. Maya's thin jacket did little against the aggressive air conditioning, but she couldn't afford to waste money on a new one. Her scholarship covered tuition, but little else. Every dollar earned from her 2 part-time jobs went toward rent and the mounting medical bills from her mother's ongoing cancer treatments back home in Ohio. She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and checked her watch. 4:58 p.m. Her tutoring appointment was late. Again. She'd give him 10 more minutes before leaving. The thought of another missed session made her stomach clench. Not because of the lost income. She'd decided to tutor this particular student for free, but because beneath his designer clothes and apparent disinterest, she'd glimpsed something familiar. A quiet desperation. At 5:07 p.m., Elliot Warner strode through the library doors, moving with the easy confidence of someone who had never worried about money. His cashmere sweater probably cost more than her monthly rent. He slid into the chair across from her, not bothering with an apology. "Thermodynamics?" he said, dropping a pristine textbook between them. "I need to understand it by Friday." Maya nodded, swallowing the urge to point out his lateness. "Let's start with the basics. What's giving you trouble?" "All of it." His voice was flat, eyes fixed on a point beyond her shoulder. This was their 3rd session, and Maya had yet to see him smile. Most rich kids who struggled academically either hired premium tutors or coasted on family connections. Elliot sought her out specifically after seeing her modest flyer in the engineering building, free tutoring for struggling students who can't afford help, even though he clearly wasn't her intended audience. "Everything has a starting point," she said, opening the book, "even the most complex problems." For the next hour, Maya broke down complex thermodynamic principles into digestible pieces. Despite his initial aloofness, Elliot proved to be surprisingly sharp. He didn't lack intelligence, he lacked focus. His mind seemed perpetually elsewhere. When their session ended, Maya packed her worn backpack while Elliot lingered, fidgeting with his expensive fountain pen. "Why are you doing this?" he finally asked. "Tutoring me for free when you could charge someone like me a fortune?" The question caught her off guard. "Because you asked for help," she said simply. "And everyone deserves a chance to learn, regardless of why they're struggling. Even entitled rich kids?" "I don't think you're entitled," Maya said. "Distracted, maybe, but not entitled." Something shifted in his expression, a small crack in his carefully constructed facade. For a heartbeat, vulnerability flickered across his face before disappearing behind well-practiced indifference. "Same time Thursday?" he asked, already standing. Maya nodded, watching him leave, wondering what weight he carried beneath all that expensive fabric. That night, in her tiny off-campus apartment, Maya spoke to her mother over video chat. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room made her mother's already pale skin look translucent. 3 rounds of chemotherapy had stolen her hair, but not her smile. "How are your students, sweetheart?" her mother asked. Maya described her various tutoring clients, saving Elliot for last. "There's this one guy who's different. He's clearly wealthy, but he seems lost." Her mother's eyes softened. "Sometimes the poorest people are the ones with the most money. He doesn't talk about himself at all. 3 sessions, and I know nothing about him except that he drives an Aston Martin and can't focus on thermodynamics." "Give him time," her mother said. "Some people need safe spaces before they can open up." The call ended with their usual exchange, Maya promising to focus on school, not worry about money, her mother promising to fight the cancer with everything she had, both knowing the other was only partially telling the truth. Thursday arrived with an unexpected downpour. Maya splashed through puddles to reach the library, arriving drenched despite her umbrella's best efforts. Water dripped from her jacket onto the study table as she arranged her materials, shivering slightly. To her surprise, Elliot was already waiting, 15 minutes early. More surprising was the paper cup he pushed toward her. "Green tea, 2 sugars?" he said. "I notice that's what you drink." Maya wrapped her cold fingers around the warm cup, momentarily speechless. "Thank you." He shrugged, but his eyes remained on her face a moment longer than usual before dropping to his textbook. "I started the practice problems you assigned." They worked through problem sets, Maya noticing small changes in Elliot's demeanor. He leaned forward instead of slouching back. His questions became more focused. When she explained a particularly complex concept, a genuine smile briefly transformed his face. As their session concluded, rain continued battering the windows. Maya gathered her belongings, dreading the long, wet walk to her apartment. "I can drive you home," Elliot offered, following her gaze to the storm outside. "That's not necessary. It's pouring, and I'm heading out anyway." His tone left little room for argument. Minutes later, Maya sat in the passenger seat of a car worth more than her entire educational journey. The leather seats were heated, instantly warming her cold limbs. The rain created a cozy cocoon around them as they pulled away from campus. "Where to?" he asked. She gave him directions, suddenly self-conscious about her neighborhood. When they arrived at her building, with its peeling paint and security door propped open with a brick, Elliot's expression remained carefully neutral. "Thanks for the ride," Maya said, hand on the door handle. "Maya?" His voice stopped her. "I have an exam Monday. Would it be possible to meet over the weekend?" The request surprised her. Weekend sessions meant sacrificing hours at the campus coffee shop where she worked. But something in his hesitant tone made her nod. "Saturday morning? The library opens at 9. Actually," he said, "there's a cafe near here. Riverstone? Better lighting, decent coffee. We could meet there at 10. Maya agreed, watching as his car disappeared into the rain, wondering about the quiet desperation that seemed to follow him like a shadow. Riverstone Cafe proved to be a cozy establishment with worn leather chairs and the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee. Maya arrived early, selecting a table by the window. Unexpected sunlight streamed through the glass, warming her face as she reviewed her notes. When Elliot arrived, the difference was immediate. Gone were the designer clothes, replaced by faded jeans and a simple gray sweatshirt. Without his usual polished appearance, he looked younger, less certain, more human. "Nice place," he commented, settling across from her. "I come here sometimes when I need to think." Maya nodded, sensing this small disclosure was significant. It has character. Their session progressed differently outside the formal library setting. Elliot asked questions beyond thermodynamics, showing genuine curiosity about her teaching methods. During a break, he returned with refills and a plate of pastries. "You should eat something," he said, pushing the plate toward her. "Brain food." Maya hesitated before taking a croissant, conscious of how she rationed her food budget. "Thanks. Can I ask you something personal?" Elliot's fingers tapped a nervous rhythm on the table. She nodded, curious. "Why engineering? You're an amazing teacher. Why not education?" The question touched on dreams Maya rarely articulated. "I love teaching, but engineering can change lives on a larger scale. My mom worked in a factory with outdated equipment that slowly destroyed her health. Better engineering could have prevented that." She paused, surprised by her own candor. "Plus, engineers make enough to afford good health care." Something flickered in Elliot's eyes. Recognition, perhaps. "Your mother is sick?" Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. She rarely discussed her mother's illness, the weight of it too heavy to share. "Mine died when I was 12, he said quietly. "Cancer too." The simple disclosure hung between them, a shared understanding requiring no further words. In that moment, the distance between their worlds narrowed. As they returned to thermodynamics, Maya noticed Elliot's renewed focus, as if sharing that small piece of himself had lightened some invisible burden. When they parted, he lingered by the cafe door. "Same time tomorrow? I could use the extra help before Monday's exam." Maya should have said no. Sunday shifts at the coffee shop paid time and a half, but something in his request felt important beyond academics. "Same time," she agreed. Sunday's session proved even more productive. Elliot grasped complex concepts quickly, his natural intelligence emerging as his confidence grew. When they finished the planned material early, an awkward silence settled between them. "Would you like to go for a walk?" Elliot asked suddenly. "There's a park nearby. Might be nice before you head back." The autumn afternoon was crisp and golden. Fallen leaves crunched beneath their feet as they strolled through the small neighborhood park, conversation flowing more easily outside the context of tutoring. "Why did you seek me out specifically?" Maya finally asked the question that had been puzzling her. "You could afford professional tutors, ones with advanced degrees." Elliot was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice carried a rawness she hadn't heard before. "I saw you helping that freshman, the one who was crying in the engineering building. You didn't know her, but you sat with her for an hour, helping her understand the material. He kicked at a pile of leaves. You didn't do it for recognition or money. You just saw someone struggling and helped. Maya remembered the girl, overwhelmed, convinced she didn't belong in engineering. Anyone would have done that. No, Elliot said firmly. They wouldn't. Most people walk past others' pain every day. They reached a bench overlooking a small pond, sitting in companionable silence. A family fed ducks nearby, a child's laughter carrying across the water. I'm failing 3 classes, Elliot admitted suddenly. Not just struggling, failing. If I don't pass this semester, I lose everything. Maya turned to him, surprised. But you're brilliant. When you focus, that's the problem. I can't focus. His hands clenched. My grandfather, he has these expectations. The family business, the legacy, it's suffocating. He looked at her. The day I saw you helping that girl, I was considering dropping out. What's stopping you? If it's not what you want, it's complicated. He cut in. Family always is. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the park, they walked back toward the cafe where they'd left their books. Their goodbye felt different, less like tutor and student, more like 2 people who had glimpsed beneath each other's surfaces. Monday morning found Maya rushing across campus, late for her materials science lecture after picking up an extra pre-dawn shift at the coffee shop. Sleep deprivation made the world slightly blurry around the edges. As she hurried up the steps to the engineering building, a familiar figure appeared. Elliot stood at the top of the stairs, his usual polished appearance restored. When he spotted her, he bounded down the steps. I got a 92, he announced, waving a paper. Highest grade in the class. Maya's fatigue momentarily lifted. That's amazing. I knew you could do it. I couldn't have done it without you. His smile faltered as he took in her exhausted appearance. Are you okay? Just tired. Extra shift this morning. Something shifted in his expression. Have coffee with me? To celebrate? I have class in 10 minutes. After then. Please? I want to talk to you about something. The unexpected please made her agree. Student union at noon? He nodded, looking relieved. I'll be there. Throughout her lecture, Maya found her thoughts drifting to Elliot. Something had changed between them during their weekend sessions, a tentative bridge forming across the vast socioeconomic canyon that separated their lives. At noon, she spotted him immediately, occupying a corner table in the crowded student union. 2 coffee cups and a bag from the campus bakery sat in front of him. I wasn't sure what you'd want, he said as she sat, so I got a few options. The bag contained an assortment of sandwiches and pastries, enough food for several meals. Maya selected half a sandwich, keenly aware of how she could save the rest for dinner. I've been thinking about what you said, Elliot began, about engineering changing lives. He hesitated, fingers tapping that familiar nervous rhythm. I've never told anyone this, but I don't want to take over my grandfather's company. I want to design renewable energy systems for communities that can't afford reliable power. The passion in his voice caught Maya by surprise. That sounds amazing. My grandfather would call it a waste of a Warner legacy. Bitterness edged into his tone. According to him, I should be focused on maximizing shareholder value, not designing solar systems for rural villages. Warner, Maya repeated, something clicking into place. Warner as in Warner Enterprises? The global conglomerate? Elliot's expression closed slightly. My grandfather is Richard Warner. The revelation hit Maya like a physical force. Richard Warner was one of the wealthiest men in the country, his company's reach extending across industries and continents. The disparity between their worlds suddenly seemed even more vast than she'd imagined. Why are you telling me this? She asked quietly. Because you're the first person who's seen me as just me. Not a Warner, not a legacy, not a trust fund. Just a guy who sucks at thermodynamics. His attempt at humor fell flat. And because I need your help with something else. Another class? No, he took a deep breath. I want to establish a scholarship for engineering students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Students like you who have the talent but not the financial resources. He leaned forward. I need someone who understands both the academic requirements and the real challenges these students face. Someone to help design the program, set the criteria. Maya stared at him, speechless. It would be a paid position, he continued. Good pay. And it would look impressive on your resume when you apply for graduate programs. The offer hung between them. Maya's mind raced, calculating what such a position could mean. Fewer shifts at minimum wage jobs, more time to study, maybe even extra money to send home for her mother's treatments. Why me? She finally asked. You must know dozens of people more qualified. Because you tutor struggling students for free even when you can barely afford your own textbooks. His gaze held hers. Because you saw value in helping me when there was nothing in it for you. Maya felt a tightness in her chest. The opportunity was extraordinary, but a nagging doubt remained. Did you seek me out because you already knew you wanted to start this scholarship? No, he said firmly. I sought you out because I was drowning and you looked like someone who knew how to swim. His voice softened. The scholarship idea came later, after seeing how you approach teaching, how you understand what students really need. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, an incoming call from her mother's hospital. Her heart dropped. I need to take this, she said, rising quickly. Elliot nodded, concern evident in his eyes. Maya stepped away, answering with shaking hands. The conversation was brief but devastating. Her mother's condition had worsened. The doctors recommended a more aggressive treatment protocol, one not fully covered by insurance. When she returned to the table, Maya knew her face betrayed everything. What's wrong? Elliot asked. She shook her head, gathering her belongings. I need to go. Family emergency. Maya, let me help. You can't, she said more sharply than intended. This isn't something that can be fixed with a Warner checkbook. The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Hurt flashed across Elliot's face. I'm sorry, she said. That was unfair. I need to figure some things out. She left him sitting there, confusion and concern etched into his features as she hurried across campus with tears blurring her vision. For the next week, Maya avoided Elliot. She canceled their scheduled tutoring sessions via text, citing personal reasons. She picked up every available shift at both jobs, desperate to send more money home. On minimal sleep and maximum stress, she moved through her days like a ghost. The following Wednesday, she arrived at her apartment to find Elliot sitting on the steps of her building, a folder in his hands. You've been avoiding me, he said as she approached. Maya sighed, too exhausted for denials. It's not a good time, Elliot. I know. He stood, his usually confident posture uncertain. Your mom's cancer has progressed. The new treatment costs are astronomical. You're working double shifts to try to help. She stared at him. How could you possibly know that? Because I called the hospital pretending to be your brother. At her shocked expression, he hurried on. I know it was invasive and probably unethical. But you disappeared and I was worried. That's crossing a line, Maya said, anger cutting through her exhaustion. My family's medical issues aren't your business. You're right, he acknowledged. But this might be... He handed her the folder. Inside was information about a clinical trial for an innovative cancer treatment, along with an acceptance letter with her mother's name on it. The treatment would be completely covered. What is this? Maya whispered. Warner Enterprises has a medical division. They're running this trial. There was an opening, and your mother's case fit the criteria perfectly. Maya's hands trembled as she held the papers. Did you pull strings to get her in? I made sure her application was seen, that's all. She qualified on her own merit. His eyes met hers. This isn't charity, Maya. This is me using the only advantage I have, my name, for something that actually matters. Conflicting emotions warred within her, gratitude, suspicion, hope, pride. Why would you do this? She asked, voice barely audible. Because you showed me kindness without expecting anything in return. His voice cracked slightly. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Maya sat heavily on the steps, the folder clutched to her chest. Elliot sat beside her, careful to maintain space between them. My mother would have to relocate for the trial, she said, thinking aloud. I'd need to find her housing, transportation. There's a patient accommodation program. Everything's covered. He hesitated. I made sure of it. Maya looked at him then. Really looked at him. Beyond the expensive clothes and famous last name was a young man trying to forge his own path, to define himself outside his grandfather's shadow. Thank you, she finally said. I don't know how to repay this. You don't, he smiled softly. But you could stop avoiding me, and maybe consider my scholarship proposal. That evening, over another cup of green tea with 2 sugars, Maya agreed to help develop the Warner Chen Engineering Scholarship for disadvantaged students. The hyphenated name had been Elliot's insistence. It needs your name, he'd said. You're the heart of it. Over the following months, as her mother began the promising clinical trial, Maya and Elliot worked side by side building something meaningful. The scholarship program took shape, designed to provide not just financial support but mentorship, internship opportunities, and community building among recipients. Working closely, they discovered shared values beneath their different backgrounds. Maya's practical perspective balanced Elliot's ambitious vision. His resources amplified her insights. Together, they created something neither could have accomplished alone. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and tentative good news. Her mother's cancer was responding to the treatment. The day they received the promising scan results, Elliot took Maya to dinner to celebrate. Not at some exclusive restaurant where the Warner name opened doors, but back to Riverstone Cafe, where their real friendship had begun. Under the cafe's warm lights, Maya finally asked the question she'd been avoiding. "What will your grandfather say about the scholarship? About your renewable energy plans?" Elliot's expression tightened. "He doesn't know yet about any of it." "Elliot, he's hosting a charity gala next week," he continued. "The perfect opportunity to announce the scholarship program. He can hardly object in a room full of donors and press. That sounds like a declaration of war, not an announcement," Maya said gently. "Maybe it is." Elliot stared into his coffee. "My whole life I've tried to be what he wanted. The perfect heir to continue his legacy. But his legacy is profit at any cost. I can't keep pretending that's what I want." "What do you want?" His eyes met hers. "To make a difference. To use the Warner name for something good." He hesitated. "I want you to come to the gala with me." Maya laughed reflexively. "Me? At a black-tie billionaire event?" "Yes, you." His expression was earnest. "The scholarship was your idea as much as mine. You should be there when it's announced." "I don't exactly have gala-appropriate attire," she pointed out. "That can be arranged." "Elliot, I can't let you buy me clothes. Consider it a uniform for your new job as scholarship program director." At her startled look, he smiled. "That's the other thing I wanted to discuss. Full salary, benefits, flexible hours so you can finish your degree. You're the only person I trust to run this." 2 days before the gala, a package arrived at Maya's apartment. Inside was a simple but elegant midnight blue gown with a note, "No pressure, but the offer stands. Either way, the dress is yours." Maya stood before her small mirror, the dress transforming her reflection into someone she barely recognized. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. "You've earned this moment. Don't let fear of not belonging hold you back." The Warner Foundation Gala occupied the entire top floor of the city's most exclusive hotel. Crystals dripped from ceilings, champagne flowed freely, and the assembled guests represented more wealth than Maya had imagined existing in one room. Elliot waited at the entrance, his tuxedo impeccable but his expression tense until he spotted her. His face transformed with a smile that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. "You came," he said, taking her hands. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "So am I." He offered his arm. "At least we can be terrified together." The evening proceeded in a blur of introductions and small talk. Maya observed how Elliot navigated this world with practiced ease while maintaining a subtle distance from it, always polite, never fully engaged, until an elderly man approached, commanding immediate deference from everyone nearby. Richard Warner was shorter than Maya had expected, but his presence filled the space around him. Sharp eyes assessed her with unsettling precision. "So this is the tutor who miraculously improved your grades," he said, extending a hand. "My grandson speaks highly of your abilities, Ms. Chen." "Maya is more than a tutor, grandfather," Elliot said. "She's the co-creator of the scholarship program I'll be announcing tonight." The older man's expression hardened slightly. "Scholarship program? This is the first I'm hearing of it." "That's by design," Elliot replied, his voice steady despite the visible tension in his shoulders. "I wanted it to be a surprise." Richard's gaze shifted between them. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "Actually," Elliot checked his watch, "it's almost time for the announcement." What followed was both beautiful and terrible to witness. Standing at the podium, Elliot spoke with passionate conviction about the Warner Chen Scholarship, outlining its mission to support talented engineering students from disadvantaged backgrounds. He spoke of innovation, opportunity, and using privilege to open doors for others. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Richard Warner did not. Later, in a private room off the main hall, the true confrontation came. Maya stood by Elliot's side as his grandfather's control fractured. "You committed millions of foundation dollars without consultation," Richard snapped. "Attached our name to a program with no oversight. And for what? To play philanthropist with money you haven't earned?" "The money came from my personal trust," Elliot responded. "And Maya will oversee the program, ensuring recipients meet rigorous standards." Richard's gaze cut to Maya. "I'm sure Ms. Chen is very competent, but this reeks of youthful idealism without practical consideration. My mother is alive because of Warner Enterprises' clinical trial," Maya said quietly. I understand better than most how access to resources can change lives. A clinical trial with potential commercial applications, Richard countered, not an open-ended charity case. Is that all people are to you? Elliot's voice rose. Commercial applications or charity cases? That's enough. Richard's tone lowered dangerously. You want to play at changing the world? Fine. But understand this. If you persist with this rebellion, your position at Warner Enterprises will need to be reconsidered. That's not a threat, grandfather. It's liberation. Elliot straightened. I've spent years trying to be the grandson you wanted. Tonight I'm choosing to be the man I need to be. When Richard left, the silence felt oppressive. Maya touched Elliot's arm gently. Are you okay? He exhaled shakily. No, but I will be. He looked at her. Thank you for standing with me, always, she promised, the word carrying more weight than she'd intended. In the months that followed, the scholarship program flourished despite Richard's disapproval. The first class of recipients, brilliant young minds from backgrounds of hardship, brought fresh perspective to engineering challenges. Maya thrived in her role, creating a community among the scholars while finishing her own degree. Elliot's relationship with his grandfather remained strained, but something unexpected happened. Other board members at Warner Enterprises began noticing the positive publicity generated by the scholarship. Several approached Elliot about his renewable energy concepts, seeing potential where Richard saw only deviation from tradition. On a warm spring afternoon, Maya and Elliot sat in their favorite corner of Riverstone Cafe, surrounded by scholarship applications for the coming year. My mother's latest scan came back clear, Maya said, still hardly believing it herself. The doctors are using the word remission. Elliot reached across the table, taking her hand. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you both. None of this would have happened without you, she said. The treatment, the scholarship, this job. Stop, he interrupted gently. You've worked harder than anyone I know. I just removed some obstacles. Why? The question had lingered for months. Out of all the struggling students you could have helped, why me? Elliot was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. When I first saw you tutoring that freshman, I recognized something I'd lost. Purpose, compassion, connection. I was just going through the motions, following a path I hated because I couldn't imagine an alternative. He met her eyes. You showed me another way to exist in the world. You reminded me who I wanted to be. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. And who is that? Someone worthy of the opportunities I've been given. Someone who builds bridges instead of walls. His voice softened. Someone worthy of a second chance. The distance between them, social, economic, circumstantial, had once seemed insurmountable. Now it felt like the space of a heartbeat easily crossed. I think, Maya said carefully, that we've given each other second chances. In that moment, surrounded by applications from students whose lives they would help transform, Maya recognized the beautiful irony. She had set out to tutor a struggling student, only to discover they would ultimately teach each other the most valuable lessons of all, about courage, purpose, and the transformative power of seeing someone for who they truly are, not for what circumstances have made them appear to be. And as Elliot's fingers interlaced with hers, Maya understood that the greatest education comes not from textbooks or lectures, but from the connections we forge when we're brave enough to reach across divides, vulnerable enough to accept help, and generous enough to give it without expectation of return. Poor student tutors, rich classmate for free, amazed to discover he's the CEO's grandson. A simple story of two people from different worlds. But beneath that headline lay something far more profound, a reminder that sometimes the most important lessons we learn from each other have nothing to do with what's written in books, and everything to do with what's written in our hearts.